Alright, heads up, bros. We are down a member for this episode, so it's just gonna be me and Aloe Vera. Roll tape.
Heavy is a class that has lots of utility. Each one of his miniguns has something special. You want consistency? Use stock. You want better aim? Use the Tommy. You fucking hate scouts? Use the Natasha. You wanna light people on fire? Just play pyro, dude.
Fentanyl, Chinese communist wagon here.
You read correctly, naive viewer. We're definitely not playing pyro. No. We're doing something even worse because today's subject is the Huo-Long heater. Anyway, the Huo-Long heater is a primary weapon for heavy that doesn't seem to get much love from the community. You rarely ever see someone using the Huo-Long heater, and when you do, it's mostly just free-to-plays that got from the rate of drop system. That's why we at AWAHTUT HQ have decided to shed some light on this underwhelming sack of steel, starting with...
The heater is a strange-looking contraption. It's obviously a minigun, but with strange additions, like a wooden drum and a vented singular barrel. However, the most prominent feature of the heater is, of course, the dragon head at the end of the barrel. The color of the dragon depends on what team you're on, and other than that, it serves, no actual function.
The main gimmick of the heater is the ring of fire mechanic. Whenever the gun is revved up, a small ring of fire will be produced around you. It doesn't really do anything unless you're breathing down someone's neck, and all it does is set them on fire for a couple seconds. Additionally, you can do extra damage against anyone who's on fire, but the gun does 10% less base damage. This is pretty underwhelming and would be an okay side grade, and nobody would really care if not for...
And that is why everyone hates it.
Before we get to why this thing sucks, let's talk weapon origins. The Huo-Long is a promotional item for Sleeping Dogs, a game where you spy in Hong Kong triads for the cops and kill way too many people despite being a cop. Trust me, bro, it's a necessary evil. Unlike other promotionals like the Diamondback or the Fortified Compound, which are weapons from their respective games, the only connection this piece of shit has with Sleeping Dogs is Chinese. The name Huo-Long in Mandarin means fire breather, which is ironic because Chinese dragons don't breathe fire. Good try, though.
The Huo-Long is the worst kind of TF2 weapon. The crappy gimmick weapon. Something we have a habit of covering on the show. It's one thing to have a gimmick weapon that's kinda ass. Like, nobody's gonna tell you that the Babyface or the Huntsman are good weapons, but they are fun and they do have their niche. The Huo-Long is more akin to something like the Enforcer. A gimmick weapon with a gimmick that's so useless it becomes a shitty stock reskin. The only saving grace is the fact that it barely has any downsides. So who cares? The Huo-Long is different though. So losing 4 ammo per second whilst revved is not a good feature, and basically forces you to only use the minigun when absolutely necessary. So no spy checking. 10% less ammo consumption is a necessary evil. But because it's a downside, it gets triaged to this section automatically. Now, the plus 25% damage against burning players seems like a good thing, and in certain circumstances, it is. If you have a pyro on your team that's able to light the enemy from afar using a flare, then this stat shows its use. But if someone gets close enough to you for you to set them on fire, you are better off switching to your melee or secondary, because they absolutely caught you by surprise while you weren't paying attention, and now you have no plan, you silly Billy. The Ring of Fire is an amazing concept for heavy, and I believe they worked it out well with the heater. Sure, it isn't the best gimmick out there, but it's got its uses, and it's actually pretty fun to play with. Not to mention the sound this thing makes. As someone who really appreciates sound design in video games, the heater really tickles that part of my brain. It looks cool, it sounds cool, and it's got a really sweet gimmick. What else could you possibly ask for? Well, other than maybe less ammo consumption, because that stat is really fucking irritating. Would it really be an AWAHTUT video without a strat section? Come on now. This time, however, we've decided to switch things up a bit. Instead of doing, whatever the fuck we did the last few times, we're gonna be going over the different strategies you should use for different game modes.
Starting off with a few general strats, do not stay revved. Staying revved is the one fucking thing you do not want to do whilst using the heater. Like at all. The minus 4 ammo every second is not a stat to scoff at. It will seriously fuck you up if you aren't careful. Ammo management is the key while using the heater. You want to make sure that every bullet is worth the $200 that Heavy spent on it. Now, spies. Spies suck.
Your mother!
Especially when you're playing heavy, but they suck less when using the heater. Believe it or not, most casual spies are scared of the ring, and they will try to avoid it. We aren't saying that they won't backstab you, but you definitely will get stabbed less, so use this to your advantage. Now for the game mode specific strats.
It's CTF, so I don't really get why you want us to tell you how to play. Just kill people, idiot. Don't cap, it's bad manners. Cart Heavy is an elite stratagem on payload. Since the cart negates the ammo drain, you can sit on it like the hermit moron you are. Also, it's worth noting that this is insanely good for points. The cart and the kills do amazing things together.
Heavy is a great class for when you have the hill, because this whole thing is sitting in one place and shooting at things. When you don't have it, you're kinda fucked, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. In particular, the Huo-Long excels because you can't fire this thing for too long because...
Unlike with payload, attacking on control point maps is all about speed and going as fast as possible. And you can already guess how that goes with Heavy. He is quite good on defense, though. And now it's time for your annual news segment that we try once and never again. In this segment, we will give you some recommendations for weapons to use alongside the heater to inflict maximum pain and suffering.
First things first, use a lunchbox. Sandwich, Delocus, banana, it doesn't really matter, just use it. Heavy is big, slow, and vulnerable, so it's important that he has access to healing at all times. And if your team doesn't have a medic, then the only way to get consistent heals, as Heavy, is with one of his lunchboxes. You will need one, use it.
Now, if you're a little crazy, you may play Misha as an offense class, in which case a lunchbox might not boogie your board. If that is the case, fair viewer, then fret not, for Heavy has shotguns. A shotgun is always a decent and useful tool to have in your arsenal when playing Heavy, and can certainly lead to some funny moments. Now we have a couple recommendations for melees. If you want to play like Ook and light everyone on fire really quickly, then the Gru is for you. Run up behind people like the fattest spy you possibly can, then light them up with the Long. Now, if you want to be smart, then use the KGB. Guaranteed crits on kill is a real good thing to pair with the Huo-Long, especially when you catch a gaggle of Oids by surprise.
孩童性恋了。
羞羞，你是同性恋。
That's right, you miserable miscreants. It's time for everyone's favorite segments, loadouts. First loadout straight from the slop factories der Überook. For this, you want to slap on the beef and the eviction notice. Make sure everyone on the server knows that you came from your cave for a fight, and you ain't leaving till you get one.
Next is the AWAHTUT house favorite, the Raw. This one's quite simple, really. Just the family business and pan. The Raw will not only confuse, but utterly perplex all other Ooks on the server. The goal of the Raw is to use the Huo-Long as little as possible. This is to layer even more confusion onto the growing pile that you are amassing.
Next is George Binks, famed brother of Jar Jar. Stock Shotgun and Warrior Spirit. Named after its most famous user, George Binks is a wonderful little loadout that you will enjoy. Low-Key, next is Low-Key, the Kingfish's Scab Eater. Low-Key, the family business, and the eviction notice. It was Low-Key named after the eaters of scabs, Low-Key. Low-Key, this loadout is low-key crazy, because the eviction notice is a low-key banger. Low-Key, bro, you don't get it yet? Low-Key.
Oh!
We've complained enough about this thing, so how to fix? First, remove the last stat, or reduce it to 1 ammo per second because this kills the weapon. Aside from the obvious, we'd recommend making the Ring of Fire a lot bigger so that it actually does something besides make Heavy look cool. It would encourage enemies to get away from Heavy, making every fight either a high-risk close-range fight or a less risky mid-range fight. If it's too good, you might need the last stat to balance it. Or just give crits on burning players, I don't fucking know.
Well, wasn't that just great? We saw the good, the bad, and a lot of ugly. We hope you left with at least a little more knowledge than you started with, or maybe you didn't, and honestly, we don't care. This is such a sad weapon, and it's a fun concept, but it just suffers. Like a two-legged dog.
Anyhow, this has been episode 6 of AWAHTUT. I've been Aloe Vera.
And I've been the Kingfish, and